Hello, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Ultima's Microsoft Licensing Webinar, monthly webinar series. And today's webinar is mainly covering off all the recent news and updates from Microsoft, of which there are many. And we're kicking off with a very important question of how to maximize the value and how to address really your Microsoft licensing. This session, as always, is being recorded, and the recording will be sent round to you afterwards, along with all of the other slides as well. My name is Gerrard. I'm the Microsoft licensing consultant, head of the software team here at Ultima. I have been with Ultima now for 12 years. It says almost 12 years there, but that was did my 12 years last month, and I've been working within Microsoft licensing for all of that time, and kind of priorly with Microsoft. So you can find my contact details there, and look, please do contact me if you do have any questions, any specific scenarios that you want to run past, any licensing scenarios that you need to perhaps justify or understand. You can please contact me on those details, or your Ultima account manager, or your other licensing consultant who you may be working with. There will be the opportunity to ask questions throughout this webinar, and at the end of which I will cover them off. But of course, there's going to be a certain amount of high-level coverage here that will hopefully resonate with you and start to spark some of those questions. But you might prefer to do that in a more private forum. More than happy to set up a call over email and come and see you, even if that is your preference as well. So yeah, whatever your industry, whatever size you are, these kind of Microsoft changes are going to impact you in a variety of different ways. So we'll kind of cover off what those impacts may be and what kind of things you need to be thinking about. On the agenda today, the headline subject is really regarding maximizing the value from your Microsoft licenses, kind of understanding where to find the value. How do I make sure we're buying the right thing? What kind of process should we do? What are other people doing? What are some real world examples of how organizations have addressed this pretty critical piece, in regards to your on-premise solutions, your cloud subscriptions, your hybrid environment. That's something I will be covering at the top in a relatively high level. Then we'll go into a lot more detail in regards to the constant and even new, even over the last couple of weeks, Copilot updates. So we have some more information, of course. I'll run through that, and I'll run through some insights on what that could mean to your organization, or what I think Microsoft could or should be doing. There's been some big changes in regards to Microsoft's teams in Europe, so I'll cover that off. And then the other really massive subject that everybody is talking about is the Windows Server 2012 extended support. Many organizations still with instances and those legacy servers at Microsoft. There are a variety of different options to you. It's a conversation I'm having 2 or 3 times daily, and have been really for the last 2 or 3 weeks, very much involved in Microsoft as they kind of change the rules and alter some of the pricing and even release new solutions as well. So I will actually spend quite a bit of time covering that off. But again, I can't stress this enough, how every organization will have their own setup, and how it is just so important to understand what your own exposure and what your own solution would be if you do need to have that 2012 extended support. Do you know what? I've called it Windows Server 2012 extended support, but I probably should have said Windows Server and SQL. Even though SQL is actually year 2 now, it is still part of that same conversation. I'll cover off other kind of Microsoft news and updates and new products, and one of which is Defender for IoT or Enterprise Internet of Things, and I'll cover off what that is, and then other updates such as Entra ID governance. And like I said, at the end of the webinar, I will be reviewing any questions or any comments that people have made or requests as well. So hopefully that kind of covers it. Like I said, it is relatively high level, and you will get a copy of the slides and recording, and hopefully all of this will come alive once you do start understanding where you are as an organization. I mean, this first piece is, and I really do think that a lot of people would already really know this. I don't think there's any great insight in regards to when we come to your tailored Microsoft licensing solutions. Where do you start? How do you approach this? There's some broad subjects in regards to your cloud subscriptions, in regards to your on-premise solutions and hybrid environment. And a lot of the time, a lot of the things that we do say, that Ultimate do say to our customers, clients and prospects, is there's not necessarily a shortcut here. There is a process to follow, and it's all around doing that discovery piece, truly understanding what it is you need to do to make your organization more cost effective. So by that, I just mean making sure people are using the correct license, and that is at a user level, and that is also at a per core kind of server level, and then that's also then utilizing that on-premise solution if you are moving into that hybrid environment, whether that's a kind of transition, whether that's going to be a full migration. So there might be some dual usage finally going into 100% public cloud. So as you say, you might have a mixture of the two. You might have some services running here or there. So how do we start? How do we always start that conversation? And yeah, there's no real shortcut, but there's also no great insight to say you just need to get a single detailed overview of really what your users are doing. Whether Ultima approach that, for example, and again, we have access to all of our technical teams and our health checks, free kind of services that we provide as part of our value-added service. So we would effectively look at, on a 21-day period, you kind of look at what is the user doing, what apps are they logging into, what suites are they using, and to what level. We can then kind of determine after that period whether they're on currently the correct license, or whether actually we need to reharvest that license, give that to somebody else, whether we need to downgrade, whether we need to upgrade them. They might be using a variety of different individual licenses, and a suite might prove more cost effective to them. So from a purely compliance and commercial point of view, we always start with, well, what are your users doing today? What are they actually using today? We're not necessarily talking about the future, what you want to do. The important thing, the important place to start is to kind of get that actual insight that you can act on as an organization. And then we can start planning what your licensing plan or what your next 12 to 36 months might look like. And then, of course, we kind of bake in, where do you want to be as an organization? What are some of the projects that you're working on? What's some of the areas of innovation that you're interested in? Similarly, when we get that single detailed view, if you are, for example, on E3 or E5, you might be well aware that your users are using Office and Exchange, but actually you might have, it's no great surprise to see that they're not fully utilizing SharePoint or some of the other licenses within there, but that's okay because that's part of your roadmap and plan as well. But that's really the next stage where we bake in, okay, is this a known fact? Or is it something where we actually need to help with? Maybe the deployment's not gone right, maybe we need to help your team with the product itself. It's a training issue. But again, like I say, it all kind of starts from getting that single detailed view of what your users need to do. And that's very much for your cloud subscriptions. It's absolutely the same methodology for your on-premise solutions as well. Whereas we are going to go in and do that discovery piece, make sure we understand which versions, which editions of Windows Server or SQL of all of your other on-premise solutions are being run. Obviously, if you've got some cloud subscriptions, most of the Microsoft cloud subscriptions do include some of your on-premise licenses, your on-premise license rights, such as M365. So again, we're always kind of taking into account all of the full holistic Microsoft investment across that licensing piece. And actually, do you need to buy an Exchange server? Do you need to buy a SharePoint server if you've got these cloud subscriptions over here? So it really is the full discovery that's an important place to start. And it's entirely pointless talking about saving money or advising what your new licensing solution would be, or advising that this product's going to do X, Y, and Z until we really truly understand what you're currently doing, whether that's stuff that you knew, and then we really build a plan from there. And then we start to bake in the innovation and the future plans and your roadmaps and timelines from that. We work very closely with organizations, but also with Microsoft as well. I'm kind of aware that this is not a huge, great big insight, but it is a question that comes up a lot. Again, similarly, I've also worked with organisations who are completely greenfield, who are entirely on premise, and the idea about running a health check to get that single view is kind of irrelevant because they're not really doing anything at the moment. But it's still that same process of making sure that we're kind of understanding what your users need to use. And that just starts with that discovery piece and interrogating your workers. And again, kind of doing that profile piece, a lot of the time we need to understand more behind what the license is giving you. So you might see something like Microsoft 365 E3 and correctly know that that does include that full version of Office. It does include that Exchange Online inbox and the full version of Microsoft Teams and SharePoint. But there's also a lot of other products in there as well that actually could provide a solution. Either you're unaware of it, we can simply switch them on. And this is ranging from everything from Azure Information Protection through Purview down through the Viva Suite and the Power Platform. You know, when we're talking about things like what's included within E3, you might have a non-Microsoft product. You might have even bought an additional Defender product, but actually Purview DLP is included within Microsoft 365 E3. Again, this kind of data loss protection is generally only on your emails and files. Actually, if you're looking for endpoint or to cover Teams, well, that's actually on E5, but within E3, you do get that data loss protection across email and files. With you know, you get things like Defender for Endpoint Plan 1, that is included. So you get that web contouring filter, you get that mobile threat defense, you get that enhanced ASR. But again, Plan 2 is within E5, so it's interrogating truly per user level what is required. You do get the manual retention labels, the manual labeling with information protection as well, so you can get that basic and personal encryption. But look, yeah, of course, if you need that automatic or that sensitive labeling, then that advanced encryption, that is part of E5. When we look at things like Viva, it's not a product that's really sold a lot from Microsoft, but again, it could actually cover off a few of your requirements within your organization. Whether you look at, you know, I think, and I'm, you know, not a huge user of Viva myself, but I have worked with organizations who look at something like Viva Engage and look at the dashboards and feeds and resources available and really can see some value in that, especially things like Viva Learning. It is probably one of the more popular ones, kind of creating these new learning tabs so you can search, share, chat, share that kind of learning experience with your wider colleagues as well. That is something that is good. I mentioned the health check, but actually within the E3 license, you've got some really cool things which can actually kind of help you on that journey, help you with that first step, that start, in regards to kind of understanding what your secure score is, understanding what your productivity score is. Again, the kind of productivity score provides that immediate information on how your organization is using M365. You know, it looks at comms, meetings, content collaboration, teamwork, mobility, and kind of provides that all-up view for you as an organization, so you can kind of start to assess how productive your users are being. With Secure Score, again, it does that same kind of numerical summary of security posture, kind of all based around systems config, you know, user behavior, and all those other kind of security related measures. But again, it's giving you that score. Yeah, sure, the health check that we do takes it to the next level, but you've got a lot of these things baked into licenses you already have, and therefore kind of utilizing that to truly understand what your position is. Just make sure that you are really maximizing that value out of that license that you have. You know, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Desktop are included within Microsoft 365 E3. Yes, you can then go and buy them as individual applications for the full experience. But within, you know, for example, within Power Apps, you still get a kind of unlimited custom application apps to use. You get all the standard connectors, but you don't get the premium connectors. You know, you can't use them on a website. With automation, you can customize and extend it a little bit, but it is fairly limited. But you can do some bits and pieces, and Similarly, with virtual agents, you get the chatbot, but that's, for example, in Teams only. But you do get unlimited chat sessions and again, those standard connectors. But you do get quite a bit of useful information. You do get quite a bit of useful products within that E3 suite. But otherwise, like I mentioned before, many organizations are kind of then taking it to the next step to really trying to understand what their usage optimization score is. We do kind of bake in the on-premise licenses, consider the hybrid environment. But this is similarly as a good place to start to understand how you basically maximizing that value within your license by kind of undertaking a kind of health check on those users, which is, but again, you do still have features in licenses you already have that could provide you with this first initial insight. And then, of course, there's the ultimate health check, which is a great service if it's required. I mean, I could keep talking about all of the various value and how to maximize the license, but pretty soon it becomes a pretty unique scenario for your organization, your own licensing portfolio, your own different profiles of users, whether you've got delivery drivers, manufacturer, whether you're a lawyer working in finance, whether you need to have multiple locations, multiple devices. It's got to be so unique, but it all starts with that discovery piece. The next piece I want to talk about is something around Microsoft Copilot. I always like to give updates in regards to where we are with the latest Microsoft news. Always worth recognizing that when we talk about Microsoft Copilot, there are many different versions of Microsoft Copilots. I've covered this on previous webinars where we've got things like GitHub Copilot, Bing Chat Enterprise or Bing Copilot, which is already available in the market, to those such as 365 Copilot. Sales Copilot's already out, but Windows isn't, M365 isn't. And you've kind of got these different modules and models that Microsoft are going to be releasing. But even then, they've now said there's going to be a new entity. So Microsoft Copilot is effectively going to be bundling in Windows 11 Copilot, Edge Copilot, Bing Copilot, and Microsoft 365 Copilot is now going to come out as Microsoft Copilot. We understand. So constantly updating. They had 8 modules. Now it looks like they're going to be consolidating this back down again. All of this before release. So as you can see, this flow of information is constantly changing. What's the latest information? Well, we now know. Well, again, I am going to assume that you know what Copilot is, that you're already aware of the $30 per user per month cost. We know that it's going to be released on the 1st of November, but there have been some things that we weren't necessarily aware of, and I have been surprised to see a minimum user is 300. So on release on the 1st of November, you have to have a Microsoft Enterprise agreement, and you have to buy for a minimum number at least 300 licenses, and you have to have also Microsoft 365 E3 or E5. So that's a hell of a lot of, that's an awful lot of prerequisites there, and it's quite a high bar for that first order. You have to order at least 300 licenses. Interesting. Okay, so I mean, this is actually pretty contradictory from Microsoft, because they had previously said, well, you have to have some existing licensing. You need to already have Microsoft 365 E3 or Microsoft 365 E5 as an organization to be able to qualify to buy Copilot. But they did also, and they have also come out and said, well, actually, if you are under 300 users, Microsoft 365 Business Standard, Microsoft 365 Business Premium would also be a qualifying license. But actually, Microsoft Business Standard and Microsoft Business Premium have an incredibly hard limit of 300 users. So already we're in direct competition with the minimum order of 300. The fact is that you can't buy Business Standard or Business Premium on an enterprise agreement. You need to have at least 500 users for an enterprise agreement, and you've got a hard limit of 300. So what this tells us is that despite announcing this, these rules are basically precluding a lot of small to medium kind of organizations. What do I think this will mean? I mean, Microsoft have to remove, they've got to remove that minimum requirement. I think we will once, and again, this is Ian Gerrard speaking, this is not Microsoft. This is something that I think we will see as soon as Copilot becomes available on other agreements outside of the enterprise agreement, for example, the CSP agreement, right? Then we'll see that minimum removed, that 300 removed. They also, I mean, is the minimum based on a certain amount of data needed? You know, I don't think so. From what I've seen, you know, you can, the Copilot we've been using is you want to add a table, you want to, you know, change everything in the presentation to the same font. You need help with just prepping this email in a slightly different way. It doesn't really need the aggregated internal training data to do that. You don't need like a huge amount of aggregated data for that. So, you know, why that 300 users? Obviously, 10 billion plus investment is a commercial decision. Again, look, I can't really comment on that. Working with Microsoft a long time. It's a big product release. It's a really, really high price point and a really high number of minimum users, which is maybe why they are targeting the enterprise agreement, where something like what would that be? That cost be what, 10 grand a month operational? Only enterprise agreement customers maybe would be able to adopt that. Maybe at scale, they're thinking how it would use, but it's certainly interesting. I was certainly taken aback. I was certainly surprised by Microsoft's decision to say a minimum number of 300 users. I do think that will be removed, but I think it will only be removed once they make it available on agreements outside of the enterprise agreement, which we don't necessarily know when that will be. All we know is that from the 1st of November, it will be available. So constantly looking at organizations, looking at the requirements, looking at the recommendations we can do. We're doing more and more readiness sessions. There's a number of technical things you can kind of do to make yourself available. You get a copy of these slides. I've shared this one before. Our pre-sales team, Stuart Sims, our head of pre-sales, is all over this, kind of setting up technical readiness sessions. And there's actually another webinar this afternoon from a slightly more technical readiness point of view. That will be, but new information is coming out every day. Ultima have been one of 3 partners in the UK who are included in the early adopters program. So, you know, of course, I'll be getting that. We were actually getting that from tomorrow, from the 12th, and we'll be hopefully able to feedback by doing it ourselves. You know, the first real world case scenario we aim to talk to you about is how it's gone internally with us. And we've got a warehouse, we have got multiple locations, we're in multiple countries, we've got multiple levels of profiles of users. So we're going to get, hopefully, and it's easy to say when it's not happened yet, hopefully we're going to get some really great insights to really be able to recommend what customers could do in this space, or at least give them the story about how we've used it and where our success is. Success management is going to be such a big thing moving forwards. Having a success manager, making sure that you're deploying and adopting things in the most effective way. Again, returning to our main theme regarding maximizing the value of your licenses and your licensing. It's not just about buying the right thing for the right price at the right time. It's about then making sure that you're adopting and utilizing that license to the maximum value as well. But in regards to Copilot readiness, these are the steps. These are the steps that you would take. And please be to us as we are learning more as well. Do you know what? We are across all of this, but we're learning every day. New stuff comes out every day. So we're just so open and working with so many organizations around this really interesting subject. Teams in Europe. Again, to be honest, this is something that I did cover in the previous webinar, but it is something that I think is really important. It is something that's come into effect from the 1st of October, and it's kind of following an EU probe around Microsoft's practice of bundling that Teams license into Microsoft 365, whereas basically Microsoft lost that case, and now to improve interoperability between rival competitive products, or basically to make it a fair market, Microsoft are removing Teams from that Microsoft 365 E3 suite. So just to clarify, in the European Economic Area, so if you're buying in euros, if your agreement is held outside of the UK, and then when you come up for renewal, if you've got it already, that's fine, don't worry. But when that license comes up for renewal, Office 365 E3, E1, Microsoft 365 E1, F3, the whole lot, Teams is going to be removed. Teams are going to be removed from that suite. You will then need to buy it as an additional license. Now, look, that cost of that E3 license, because Teams is being removed, that cost of that license is going to come down. So it's not necessarily any kind of commercial thing. It's just very much that anti-competitor. I don't know the right word, but you know, it's the anti to improve on to improve interoperability between rival communication products. But I think you understand my point. But if people kind of come up to you and start talking about, oh my God, I've heard Teams is being removed. You know, yes, it is from the 1st of October in Europe, but it's not going to affect you until your renewal date. And if you're buying in pounds, you're fine. If you're buying from the UK, you're fine. It's not going to affect you. Extended support for Windows Server and SQL 2012. Like I say, I mean, honestly, this is a conversation I'm having daily, hourly, and it's a pain point for a lot of organizations, and it's complicated and convoluted as everything with Microsoft. But Ultima can help, I can help, we can help. We work with Microsoft. Microsoft's been trying to be so helpful as well. You know, policy is one thing, but when you speak to the account teams and the commercial executives and account executives, you know, they're good, they're friendly, they want to help, and they have been helpful in the vast majority of cases. There's some key dates to understand. It's always worth going through this. I suppose the key one, right, was, you know, yesterday, October the 10th. That was when the end of support for Windows Server 2012 and 2012 R2 occurred. It was Patch Tuesday. So I think the next one is the 14th of November. So basically, if you bought ESU, your first kind of update would be then. So you've got until that date to sort it. You could also argue, even though, you know, yesterday was the start of that support. The other dates on there are obviously the end of 2008, and when it comes to the options around extended support, there's 4 options. Option number 1, upgrade your server from 2012 to 2016 or any later version. Great. Number 2, move them to Azure. So if you were to migrate those 2012 servers to Azure, then Microsoft would effectively give you that extended security updates for 3 more years at absolutely no additional charge. On the previous screen, I did show the fact that we had some key dates, and if you had moved your 2008 servers to Azure, for example, you would have got those 3 years support and at no additional charge. And actually, Microsoft then extended that for another year, which, funny enough, did come to an end in January of this year. But you could assume the same scenario with 2012, where if you were to migrate those servers to Azure, you'd kind of get 3 years plus of extended security updates for no additional charge. But if only it was that easy. And the reason we're having so many conversations and helping so many customers is because they are unable to upgrade that server on premise, and they are unable, due to the complexity, due to the third-party applications or whatever else, they're unable to move that to Azure. So that kind of leaves, well, how do we buy the extended support? So you can buy it as an annual extended support, you kind of in that traditional on-premise way, but you go in and you buy it every year, you buy extended security updates, very expensive, you're signing up for that full year, and then the next year, year 2, you buy year 2, year 3, you buy year 3. Microsoft really don't want you to do that, so they are now having to approve a business case for each organization that wants to do it. It's kind of become something called lead status, which means you need the commercial executive to give us a confirmed price, and that company ABC were going to move forward by purchasing this on-premise extended support, which in a roundabout way basically brings us to Azure Arc and what Microsoft are really pushing, and to be honest, what many organizations are seeing the value in as well. So Azure Arc, for those who don't know, is kind of a bridge that extends the Azure platform to cover on-premise solutions, so you can kind of build application services with flexibility to run across data centers or in multiple cloud environments. But specifically here, you know, extended support with Azure Arc basically means you can pay for the extended support via Azure, but it can cover your on-premise. You know, you don't need to migrate those servers to Azure, and it's then done at a monthly consumption charge. So that means if you only need the coverage for 6 months, buy extended support via Azure Arc for 6 months, and then you stop it when you don't need it anymore, which is very attractive to many organisations. Kind of charged on an hourly rate, so it's not something you prepay for. It's kind of done through your Azure consumption. If you have an enterprise agreement, great. You can do pay as you go, tick. You might have an MCA, also possible. If you don't have any of those, just do it on a monthly CSP agreement, of which Ultima are a direct partner. Many organisations have an enterprise agreement alongside a CSP for those kind of monthly requirements, or just things you don't want to commit full 3 years towards. Or actually with Dynamics, in many cases, it's actually cheaper to buy it on CSP, but I digress. Azure Arc is the way to buy the extended support on a monthly basis. You are utilizing Azure. It does cover those on-premise environments, and you can kind of turn it off when you want to, as soon as you've done those updates. The only other thing I will say is that, and it's really important, a couple of things actually, which are really important. You need to have active software assurance on those 2012 servers, and the fact is that you don't now need to have an enterprise agreement. Extended support Azure Arc is available on CSP. So Microsoft really pushing the Azure Arc there, really pushing that. More Microsoft news. Introducing Defender for Enterprise IoT. This is going to be an add-on license, so it is going to be something you buy in addition to your Microsoft 365 or E5 license. It's a device-based license, so it's worth noting that bit of a conflict there in regards to the traditional M365 E3 and E5 license. And again, this Defender for Enterprise Internet of Things, and by the way, enterprises basically means anything in the context of a business operations. So you can enable any real-time device, and as long as that device is doing business operations, to discover, continuously monitor that, have vulnerability management, and all of that, but on those kind of, in the context of business operations on those devices. It's going to be available from the 1st of November. Like I said, it is going to be a device-based license. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. So it is going to be part of Microsoft 365 E5. But Microsoft 365 E5 is a per user license. But this Defender for EOT, I'm never going to go, Defender for ELOT, is a per device-based license. So within that per user license of M365 E5, if you have that, what it does, it permits 5 devices. It gives that gives you that license for up to 5 devices, and that's then when you would use the add-on licenses if you need more devices. So pretty convoluted, but it will be part of that E5, or you just kind of buy it as an add-on license. So in that case, when I say it as an add-on license, say you don't have E5, so it's not kind of, you get 5 already. You're thinking, well, if it's an add-on license, an add-on to what? It's specifically an add-on to Defender for Endpoint Plan 2. So that's the kind of the license. That's the kind of the licensing prerequisite you will need for that. But yeah, new product. Microsoft Entra ID. This has been available since the 1st of October. It's just a name change from Azure Active Directory. No real change to functionality or cost, no action for you as the customer. The reason I'm bringing that up and why I'm mentioning this is that we have seen the introduction. So Entra ID is the same as Azure Active Directory. We have seen the introduction of Microsoft Entra ID Governance, which is an additional license and it is an additional cost, but it is giving you additional features that were never available or were not available in Azure Active Directory previously. So this Entra ID Governance is a kind of an add-on license to that Entra ID. By it's around £5 per user per month, so not cheap. But what it does do, it automatically ensures that the right people have the right access, the right apps and services at the right time, which is a wonderful little thing to say, and probably needs to be investigated and investigated to whether that's going to be useful for your organization. But that's why we have all of our pre-sales technical solutions and consultants as well. So we'll be happy to do that with you as well. But effectively, no change for Microsoft Entra ID, exactly the same as your Active Directory Premium. However, we have seen the introduction of something called Microsoft Entra ID Governance, which is an additional charge, but it's kind of bringing even more new things to the suite. Thank you. I hope that was useful. You will get a copy of the slides. And let me just check the questions. There is no questions, which is my favorite. But actually, it's not my favorite. I love questions, so please do contact. Yeah, it shows that people have things. So let me know if there's anything you want to hear about, anything wasn't clear, that you want to go through your own scenario and understand what your own discovery might be on how to maximize the value, or discover whether things like Viva are going to be useful in your organization, manual labeling, whether there's a power apps or power automation interest that we can kind of leverage to get more from that investment that you've made, whether that builds into your wider Copilot strategy, kind of using more from the licenses today due to the high cost, going to be even more critical. You know, your managers is going to be asking, well, what about this £1 million investment, about this £500,000 investment on E3, E5? Why are we having to buy? You know, so let's make sure you're getting the maximum value out of your current investment before we start considering the innovation in the future. That's really what it's all about. But alongside those cool conversations regarding automation and Copilot in the future is 2012 extended support. So we're about the most of all, really. But Microsoft continually kind of bringing out new products and new solutions. But we're more than happy to cover organizations who are still entirely on premise. You know, the licensing piece is something we can help with across the board. And you have to look at it across the board as well, you know, because some of your cloud licensing can contribute towards your on-premise requirements, which builds into your hybrid environment. So it's worth doing it all at once. Sorry for rambling on. I hope that was useful. Please contact me or your account manager with more questions. And thank you very much for your time today.